folks, welcome back. Pop Retro. You can find me at Pop Retro 1 on Instagram and Twitter, facebook.com/popretro1, patreon.com/popretro. So wanted to take a few minutes today to discuss a movie that I just watched in full last night, or a couple nights ago, I should say, and that is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World from 1963, which happens to be a long movie. But that's okay, because it's a good one. And I thought I had seen this film all my life, simply because growing up in the, I guess those early years of cable TV in the 80s and into the 90s, I would catch this off and on, just whenever it was airing on cable. But it was so long that I always caught it in pieces, but it's so funny and sort of episodic in the way that the story goes, because there's so many characters that they just bounce back and forth between, that I had never actually sat down and watched it from beginning to end all the way through. And so it was a lot of fun to do, actually, to find the time to do it, because I like 90-minute movies. I like to get in and get out. And also I just have so much going on in life sometimes that watching a really long movie, takes 2 days. I got to pause it, stop it, and come back and pick it up then. So, first time from beginning to end. And the main thing about this that I remember even growing up was just how many famous comedian actors are in this. And got my notes down here. Spencer Tracy, Milton Berle, Sid Caesar, Buddy Hackett, Ethel Merman, Mickey Rooney, Dick Shawn, Phil Silvers, Terry Thomas, Jonathan Winters, Edie Adams, Dorothy Provine, and Jimmy Durante. All of them and more are in this. Those are like the main players, the ones that get the most screen time. And there are tons of other people that are in this that just pop up in small roles or in cameos. Even kind of a funny quick cameo by the Three Stooges, which just kind of catches you off guard, because you know exactly who that is. Even if you're like a younger person watching this. So this movie obviously came out well before I was born, in the mid-70s. And so, maybe my parents saw this at the theater in 1963. I don't know. So it's a chase comedy. Essentially what happens is there's a car crash at the beginning, and a group of drivers all stop to try to help this guy who's crashed his car, and he may be dying. And this guy gives them this hint that there is a treasure of $350,000 hidden somewhere. And so then he passes away. And so all of these people go back to their cars, and the police show up as well. But instead of everybody kind of feeling bad, they feel bad about this, but the main thing is that, hey, there's $350,000 hidden out there. And so the comedy of it is that all of these strangers decide to hop in their cars and chase after this, basically what amounts to a hidden treasure. And that's the story of it. Was directed by Stanley Kramer. He was kind of described as sort of a director of messagey movies. And this one is about, when you boil it down, it's about greed and the love of money. Because everybody, it doesn't matter what it takes, they're just chasing after that money, chasing after that almighty dollar. And probably not a lot has changed today, I guess, if you were to make a comedy like this. There's so much. You can't really do a movie like this justice in a YouTube video, a written review. I could, really go into more depth and detail, but there's just so much fun to be had. Ethel Merman in this movie is just a hoot. She's sassy and brassy, and she's unafraid to mix it up at all kinds of comedic situations. And she has lots of hilarious one-liners, smart-ass asides, and the physical comedy. She's not afraid of physical comedy. She just lights up the screen every time she's in it, and you just always wonder what she's going to say. And she's great bouncing off of Milton Berle, who plays her son-in-law in the movie. Now, the sweep and the scope of the cinematography in this movie is pretty breathtaking. I mean, the cinematographer is Ernest Laszlo. He did like 60 movies, which included Logan's Run from the 70s, one of my favorites. Now, the stunts in this movie, I mean, beginning from the beginning with the car crash. This car just careens. It just goes off this, what looks like a rock ramp, and just careens into the side of, off of a ravine and over the side of like a mountain, and lands in a bunch of rocks. And it's pretty spectacular from the beginning, and the way it's shot and the stunt work. And these stunts literally had me on the edge of my seat, and I'm like scared for the stuntmen in half of the stunts, more than half the stunts in this movie. And this is in 1963. This is way before CGI. This is way before a lot of the camera tricks that we have today were even implemented. And a lot of these stunts and chases and just the driving scenes were done along the Pacific Coast Highway, which I just love. I've always loved anything, TV show, movie, whatever, shot on the Pacific Coast Highway, because it's just such a beautiful stretch of highway along the ocean. And that's where this chase essentially is filmed, or a lot of it. And just what a great time to be alive. Just everybody was driving a convertible. It seemed like every third car was a convertible. People just tooling around, checking out the palm trees as they're driving down the highway. And then you have like this runaway plane scene with Mickey Rooney and Buddy Hackett, and they're trying to fly this plane. They're trying to land it because they get on the plane to try to beat everybody else to the treasure, but their pilot is some drunk rich guy played by Jim Backus from Gilligan's Island. Love it. And he passes out because he's drunk. He's drinking on the plane. And so Hackett has to fly, and you have Rooney trying to coach him from what he's hearing on the radio. And it's hilarious, but also just the way that it's shot and the stunts with the plane and everything else. It's amazing. And I'm like, oh crap. You really are worried about what is going to be, what's going to happen. Where this plane's going to end up. It's legit scary. Even watching it today in 2022 as I record this not as scary YouTube video. So there's that final comical chase through the building with like the multiple layered building, which is condemned. I think it's going to be torn down or something. You can tell it's condemned because it's kind of tore apart. And this is where they're, the final chase where they're chasing after this money. And it's got these rickety fire escapes, and they're failing, and everybody is trying to leave the building, and these fire escapes are just falling down. And you've got this shot looking up from the ground at all of these, what I assume are stunt people up on these rickety, failing fire escapes, and it looks like they're going to fall about, I don't know, 10 stories or even more. I don't know. It just it's up so high, and then the fire engine comes to try to save them, and there's this big, huge, tall ladder from the fire engine, and too many people jump onto the ladder, so it starts going nuts, and it's not stable. It's gonna fail too, and it's all shot in such a way that you can kind of tell when there are processed shots, the old school process shots with the rear projection and maybe green screen or blue screen back then or whatever. You can tell some of those shots, but so many of the shots are done with stunt work or just done in such a way that it's not so obvious that it's a process shot. And so it really is scary. And I'm completely sold, just watching it, just kind of like turning my head like, oh man, I don't know how this is going to end. Even though it's a comedy, and you're supposed to laugh. And I was laughing because it is funny. There are several moments in this film where I did bust out laughing out loud while watching it by myself. So LOLing literally. So a friend even told me that his parents watched this back in the day in Cinerama, and according to him, his parents said that it was overwhelming in Cinerama, almost too big. So that maybe kind of gives you an idea of how this must have looked to audiences back then. So The length of the film, it's a long film, 159 minutes. That's 2 hours and 39 minutes long. So it's a long film, and I watched it on this MGM Blu-ray. I believe there's a Criterion Blu-ray out there, or a Criterion release, I think. But this is the one I have. This looked really good. It looks really good, especially considering it's a older Blu-ray release. It was 2011 release, according to the copyright on the back of the case. There is an intermission title card that comes up somewhere in the middle of the film, so that mirrors the intermission that must have happened in the theaters back in the day. In fact, this is, I believe, the theatrical cut that I watched, because apparently there's a 202-minute original cut and a 192-minute premiere cut that they showed at the premiere, I guess. So there are a couple of even longer cuts out there. So this one is the shortest one, the theatrical cut, I assume, on this MGM Blu-ray release. So, yeah, I mean, final thoughts, I guess. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I think if you like older movies at all, if you like to watch some classic movies, don't let the length of this one fool you or get you down or discourage you, I should say, because it goes by pretty quick, because there are so many actors, so many set pieces in this that they have to bounce back and forth between them, and so you're never stuck on any one set of characters for too long, and so that tends to keep the excitement moving, the comedy moving, and just everything just continues to move at a pretty frenetic pace, which is probably why it was so popular, or one of the many reasons it was popular back in the day. It wasn't boring for a long movie, and I think they felt like they probably had to make a long movie because of all the talent that was wrapped up in this. Now, it begs the question, why would they go through all of this, trashing these cars, blowing up buildings, almost killing themselves for $350,000? Now, $350K is a lot of money, but I did some calculations, and $350K in today's money is like $3.4 million. So then, all of a sudden, now it feels like it might be worth it to get crazy and nuts about chasing down all of that dough the way that the folks in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World did. So there you have it. There's the back of the case if you want to take a look at that. This is the MGM Blu-ray, which is just fine. But again, there are other versions out there. Maybe the Criterion release, which I believe there is one, has the longer cuts, so you may be able to watch it on that as well. But there's nothing wrong with taking in the theatrical release, which is what most people saw at the theater and the way that they saw it back in 1963. So, hey, thanks for joining me on this pop retro movie review, and I'll be back soon with some more reviews and some haul videos, and I'll see you then.